Harvest in Cambridge. Joe, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
So we've already heard all sorts of claims from our listeners. It helps with your well-being. It helps to keep you generally well. It's good to spread over wounds on cattle and sheep. This stuff seems to be a miracle. Is it?
Well, all honey has antibacterial properties, but Manuka is unique in that it has one specific property, which is a compound called methylglyoxal that comes from the Manuka bush, the nectar that the bees forage on, and this is effective against a particular range of bacteria called Staphylococcus aureus, which cause the MRSA type infections in the body. So that's the thing that's very unique about Manuka and really has sparked a lot of interest worldwide because of the increase in
the properties it's got to fight things.
Well, in antibiotics.
Yes. Why is it so expensive? Is it because, it only comes from one place and there aren't that many Manuka bushes about?
It only comes from New Zealand. The Manuka bush only grows in New Zealand. It's a variant of the tea tree family, and the MAF from New Zealand will not allow the replication of the Manuka plant anywhere else in the world. So it is unique in that respect.
And there are real concerns, aren't there, that stuff which is pertaining to be Manuka honey isn't. This seems to be a big issue, really.
Well, there's been a long history around the world of food cheats, and this continues. And Manuka is very difficult to test every jar. So there are standards that the industry are trying to set now. What the consumer must look for is non-peroxide activity. So, as I said before, honey has peroxide activity in a raw form if it's not heated anyway, and the non-peroxide activity is a unique part of the Manuka. The standards such as the Molen Gold Standard, non-peroxide activity, UMF, all cover that non-peroxide activity, but the methylglyoxal part of the non-peroxide activity can be added chemically, but that's not what people want to buy when they buy a natural product.
How do you source yours? Do you source yours from one particular place in New Zealand so you know without doubt that this is the genuine article?
Well, we're a family-run company. We go to visit the beekeepers. We know the beekeepers we buy from. We test it through the laboratory. It's a verified laboratory. There are only 2 in New Zealand that do it. We're very thorough about looking at all the organoleptic properties and the pollen counts of the honey as well.
Now, Claire, who works on this programme, says her mother buys it to improve her health, but she says it tastes horrible. I must say that I have never tasted it. She was going to bring a jar in today for us to taste and forgot. But is the taste not as good as what we normally regard as honey?
Well, honey comes in many, many different flavours, depending on the floral sources of honey. Manuka does have a sort of slightly astringent quality to it. If it's been heated or treated, then it will have more of a burnt flavour, and that's quite unpleasant. So there are some unpleasant Manukas out there. The properties of Manuka will increase over time. The methylglyoxal increases over time, so it's quite safe and common for honey to be stored. The honey we sell is fresh every year, and you can store it in your cupboard, and it will only increase in its health-giving properties over time.
Who are your customers? Because we have a colleague who has had children, and she said that she took Manuka honey when she was in labour, and it definitely did the trick. Although she half wondered if it was in her mind. But who would be your typical market, and is it a growing market given that it isn't cheap?
Well, it isn't cheap, and it's getting more expensive. The supply has been constrained over the last couple of years because of falling harvests and generally lower activity levels in the harvests, and there's greater scrutiny across the industry, and the demand is going up. The customers that do use it they're elderly people who use it every day just to keep their immunity up, and if you do get exposure to any bugs, it's very good for anything in the throat, anything you might pick up in your throat, travelling on aeroplanes, if you're in hospital, if you're immunocompromised at all. It's very good for, in common with other honeys, good for coughs, as it's very soothing on the throat. It's also good for gingivitis, periodontal disease, any kind of internal inflammation. It's effective against the bugs that cause stomach ulcers. And I've even seen recently that people have been using it for sinusitis and putting it in a solution and putting up their nose.
And just finally, we were told by Vanessa, who brought this up, that it was £21 that she was looking at. We said it can go up to £30. If it's, say, £7, does that mean it's probably not the genuine article?
Yeah, Manuka is tested for its activity rating. This is the non-peroxide activity part. And so there's a rating that is normally along 5 plus, 10 plus, 15 plus. Out of the hive, it doesn't come out at more than 16 plus, so anything over that has been heated, stored, or whatever, which is perfectly legitimate, but that's what you're buying. It is an expensive product. We've seen a 20% increase in the price from beekeepers this year, and we expect that the price will continue to go up. But consumers do have to sort of get on the learning curve a little bit and look at the activity level of the honey that they're buying to be sure that the price that they're paying, the premium, is actually worth paying for this particular non-peroxide activity.
It's been really good to talk to you, Jo. Thanks very much for joining us, and it's been a whole new world for me. So thank you very much indeed.
I hope you get to taste it soon.
Cheers. We will taste it tomorrow. We're going to make sure Claire brings it.
Every pot should have one. Every home should have a pot in the medicine cabinet.
Cheers, Jo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Jo.